Breaking news at this hour. Fox News urgent: the Iraqi Prime Minister has announced just moments ago the offensive to take back Mosul is now underway. The U.S. has increased troop levels, as you may know, in Iraq 11 times since 2014. The latest increase from President Obama, some 600 troops, came just weeks ago, and we're expected to play a direct role now, our troops, in advising Iraqi forces during this offensive. But as we've been reporting on the Fox Report, we have spilled much U.S. blood and treasure in Mosul during the 2003 invasion. This time, an estimated 30,000 troops will be needed. In addition to the Iraqi army, Kurdish Peshmerga forces, Iraqi special forces, Sunni tribal fighters, did you catch that? Shiite militia forces. So you've got those two tribal factions on the ground at the same time, and even some Turkish troops, all expected to play a role, in addition to, of course, those American advisors. We're told some 5,000 of our people are on the ground there. And for more, we're joined by Fox News producer Lucas Tomlinson. Lucas, you're joining us by phone now. So we knew with weather conditions and whatnot that this would possibly roll out about mid-October. It's exactly that.
That's correct, Harris. This has been a long time coming, and you could argue not a big secret. Everybody, including Fox News, we've been reporting that this has been expected for the last few weeks. And I'm sure a lot of your viewers, people are wondering, what does this mean for the 5,000 U.S. troops that are there? We've been told by Pentagon officials that these troops will be acting in advisory capacity. But what does that mean? That means that the U.S. forces will be down to the battalion level. They will not be on the front lines. However, at a recent press briefing, I asked a U.S. military spokesman in Baghdad, do you always know where the front lines are? And he said very candidly, we haven't known where the front lines have been since World War I. As you know, ISIS likes to deploy suicide bombers and giant armored trucks, and they can spring up at any time. But this will be an Iraqi-led fight. You mentioned the Shiite militias and the Kurds. Sources tell me late last week that Prime Minister Abadi agreed to keep the Kurds and the Shiite militias outside of Mosul proper, and they've agreed to that. That's one of the reasons this took such a long time to get the political piece set.
No doubt.
Also, no doubt. And another huge piece of this are the more than 1 million people that are some trapped, some held against their will, that are inside Mosul. You know, Mosul is 4 to 5 times larger than any other city that Iraq has taken back from ISIS. And a lot will depend, of course, if ISIS is going to stand and fight, or will they retreat.
Well, we have not known them to retreat. And we do know, Lucas, from our reporting, that the place is booby-trapped on all sides, Mosul. And when you look at a map, I know that we've been hitting from the air the supply routes. So really, I mean, there are not a lot of choices to go in and out of that for them. They're ready to fight. They've been getting ready for 2 years. A couple questions for you. It's my understanding we're still going to support them from the air in helicopters, and they can with full capacity, shoot our guys down. What are you learning about what we're doing?
Well, you're right. Apache gunships from northern Iraq, from nearby Erbil, have been used against ISIS. To date, ISIS has not been known to fire shoulder-fired missiles, surface-to-air missiles. But you're right. These are lower, slower aircraft, let's say an F-16 or an F-15 jet or F-18 flying overhead. So that is a concern. U.S. forces will also be supporting with long-range artillery from a base about 40 miles south of Mosul called Kiara. U.S. military recently took over an air base there, which has been the big staging ground for those 600 troops that you said recently arrived in country. And but you know, the U.S. Special Forces are no doubt going to play a role. They're going to go as far as they can before they enter Mosul. And one thing about the booby traps that you mentioned at the recent briefing, we were told that ISIS has dug in moats, put in oil. They've dug big holes to burn tires. Tires, of course, if you remember from back in Somalia, you know, put black smoke in there, which can hamper the picture from the air. You know, our drones and our aircraft do rely on you know, visuals, and if there's black smoke, that could obscure things. In terms of whether if ISIS will stand or fight, that is a big question. In Fallujah, they cut and ran. They all jumped in trucks. They made for easy targets. Hundreds of vehicles, you remember, were destroyed in the air by coalition aircraft. In Ramadi, they did fight, but U.S. aircraft ended up an Iraqi general was quoted saying 80% of the success was due to U.S. warplanes bombing ISIS or Ramadi and turning the place into a virtual parking lot. So it remains to be seen.
So, Lucas, a couple things. You mentioned Somalia, and I know that when you talk about those Apache helicopters and what it would be like to go into that densely populated area, that is something that comes to mind. And then you've got all the people stuck in the city, a new, fresh round of refugees caught in the middle of this. Lucas, thank you very much. We're coming right back. Stay close.